When I first started riding motorcycles, I didn't see many women on bikes. This was 1977. I was 16 or so, and a woman that rode a bike was rare. Later, I actually passed a motorcycle gang of lesbian bikers. How did I know they were lesbian? Aside from the rainbow stuff and the flags that were flying in the back of the bikes, their back patch also said, "Dykes with the bikes." I thought, damn, these times they are changing. But this week I want to pull somebody from history you might have passed. Her name is Bessie Stringfield. She was known in the 50s as the motorcycle queen of Miami.
Motorcycle riders, bikers and trikers, Can-Am and quad riders. It's time to put your kickstands down and turn up the volume. This is
Motorcycle Talk Podcast.
This is what cool sounds like. Here's your host, Kenn Blanchard.
Did you hear that jack of an intro? Yeah, I know, it was messed up. But I had this guy, this radio guy, my favorite radio guy named Jeff Straub out of Texas, do that for me when I had motorcycle radio as a podcast. This the reboot, of course, Motorcycle Talk. Can't get radio back. Somebody bought my URL and that whole thing is gone. But Motorcycle Talk is alive and kicking. Thank you for joining me again, and I'm hoping that you are warm somewhere. Yeah, I was looking at the prices of motorcycles lately. Have you? They seem to have dropped. I mean, like a lot. I saw somebody selling a Harley for like $5,000, which would have been about, I don't know, $10,000 last year. Yeah, that much. Check out the prices of motorcycles. If you haven't bought one yet, now might be the time. I'm not sure what's going down. But let's go back to history. Way, way back. Somewhere between myth, memory, and motorcycles exists a woman by the name of Bessie Beatrice Stringfield. In the 1950s, when women were relegated to housework, either in marriage or as domestic servants, Stringfield was married like 6 times and worked as a maid, yet revved and roared through Florida on her Harley-Davidson, earning the unofficial title of Motorcycle Queen of Miami. Her legend was big enough to warrant a posthumous induction to the Hall of Fame of the American Motorcyclist Association in 2002, nearly a decade after her death in 1993. Hundreds of women motorcyclists make an annual cross-country trek in her honor. She has been memorialized in a comic book and mentioned in a documentary and a book about women motorcyclists by Anne Farrar. She was born 1911. She died 1993. When the AMA opened the Motorcycle Heritage Museum in 1990, Bessie appeared in the inaugural exhibit on women in motorcycling. A decade later, the AMA began giving the Bessie Stringfield Award to women who are leaders in motorcycling. And in 2002, Bessie was inducted into that Hall of Fame I mentioned before. In the 1930s and the 1940s, Bessie took 8 long-distance rides, solo rides across the U.S. The fact that she was a woman of color did not stop Bessie from achieving her goals and setting herself apart from anybody else. She even rode through the Deep South in the era when racial prejudice was a threat to her safety. She downplayed her courage often, according to her biographer, Anna Farrar. During the recording of her oral history for this book, Hear Me Roar, Women, Motorcycles, and the Rapture of the Road, Bessie revealed to the author how she drew courage from her faith in Jesus Christ, whom she called the man upstairs. She says, when I was in high school, I wanted a motorcycle, and I got one, she said. Her first bike was a 1928 Indian Scout. With no prior knowledge of how to operate the machine, Bessie proved to be a natural, but she insisted that the man upstairs gave her the skills. Soon, Bessie switched to the first of 27 Harleys that she owned in her lifetime. She tossed a penny over a map and rode to wherever it landed, eventually covering the lower 48 states. Sometimes she did a trick riding demonstrations in front of audiences, but it was her faith that got her through many nights. Bessie Stringfield was born Bessie Beatrice White to African Americans Maggie Cherry and James White, living in Eddington, North Carolina. In later years, she created a different version of her life, saying she was born in Kingston, Jamaica in 1911 to a black Jamaican father and a white Dutch mother, James Ferguson and Maria Ellis. Her birth date has been publicized as February 1911 with the birth name Betsy Lenora Ellis, though her death certificate says she was born on March 1911 in Kingston with parents' names as James Richard White and M. Cherry, but a Social Security record has her birth date as March 1912. Other public records verify she was born to Cherry and White in North Carolina. You see, back in the day, you could have multiple driver's licenses, you could change your name, nobody would really find you. You could, before biometrics and all the stuff that we have now, folks just left and started new lives. It was quite often the norm, actually. Esther Bennett, Stringfield's niece, told the New York Times in 2018 that Stringfield had lied about her origins. Anne Farrar, author of Stringfield's authorized biography, says she helped perpetuate some of the stories Stringfield had made up about her life because Stringfield had asked Farrar to tell her truth as her friend, and that Stringfield's, quote, running from her early past, end quote, did not diminish her achievements or inspirational influence on younger generations. In the popular account of Stringfield's life, her family migrated to Boston when she was still young. Her parents died when Stringfield was 5, and she was adopted and raised by an Irish woman. At the age of 16, Stringfield taught herself to ride her first motorcycle, a 1928 Indian Scout. In 1930, at the age of 19, she commenced traveling across the United States. She made 7 more long-distance trips in the U.S. and eventually rode through the 48 lower states, Europe, Brazil, and Haiti. During this time, she earned money from performing motorcycle stunts and carnival shows. Due to the color of her skin, Stringfield was often denied accommodation when traveling, so she would sleep on her motorcycle at filling stations. Due to her sex, she was refused prizes in flat track races she entered. During World War II, Stringfield served as a civilian courier for the U.S. Army, carrying documents between domestic Army bases. She completed a rigorous training and rode her own blue 61 cubic inch Harley-Davidson. During the 4 years she worked for the Army, she crossed the United States 8 times. She regularly entered and encountered racism during this time, reportedly being deliberately knocked down by a white guy in a pickup truck while traveling in the South. In the 1950s, Stringfield moved to Miami, Florida, where at first she was told nigger women are not allowed to ride motorcycles by the local police. After repeatedly being pulled over and harassed by officers, she visited the police captain. They went to a nearby park to prove her riding abilities. She gained the captain's approval to ride and did not have any more trouble with the police. Makes you wonder about that story. What did she really do in the park? What did she have to do in the park? These times, they are changing. She qualified as a nurse in Miami and found the Iron Horse Motorcycle Club. Her skill and antics at motorcycle shows gained the attention of the local press, which gave her the name, the Negro Motorcycle Queen. This nickname later changed to the Motorcycle Queen of Miami, a moniker she carried for the remainder of her life. Stringfield died in 1993 at the age of 82 from a heart condition, having kept riding right up until the time of her death. Robert Scott Thomas, whose family had employed Stringfield as a housekeeper when Thomas was a child, was named executor and beneficiary of Stringfield's estate, unaware of any relatives at the time. In 2018, the New York Times published a belated obituary for her. She married and divorced 6 times. She lost 3 babies with her first husband, and she ended up keeping the last name of her third husband, Arthur Stringfield, since she had made it famous. She was a masterful storyteller. Stringfield amazed people with her accounts of being chased off the road as she traveled through the Jim Crow South, performing stunts on the Wall of Death at carnivals, and serving as a civilian motorcycle dispatch rider for the U.S. Army in the 1940s. Her childhood, in her telling, was Dickinsonian. Born in Jamaica to an interracial couple, left motherless at a young age, abandoned by her father on a Boston street, and adopted by a benevolent Irish Catholic woman who treated her so well that she gave her a motorcycle when she was 16 years old. But according to the author of her book, From a Nursing Home in Baltimore, Esther Bennett, 86, had a whole different version of her story, that she basically lied. Her mother was Maggie Cherry. Her father was James White. They were both Black American and lived in Edenton, North Carolina. And according to Bennett's Stringfield's niece, records confirmed her account. Either way, it's a pretty good story. Bessie Stringfield, motorcycle queen of Miami, in the history books of the American Motorcyclist Association. Hall of Famer, actually. Podcasting is booming. If you've thought about what it would take to create a dynamic podcast to boost your marketing, communicate with your audience, or stay in touch with the community, you were right. Podcasting can do that, though. But maybe you didn't want to start something new. You didn't want to waste time learning a new skill. Well, I can help you. You know time is money. Just record and promote your show and leave the rest to podcastsolutions.us. I'm a veteran podcaster that just started this new company in the DMV focused on helping business-minded people like you. If you know you need a podcast to market your service or product, but don't want the pain of editing and producing it, I'm your guy. podcastsolutions.us. If you have a political campaign, you're a real estate person, in the medical field, you have a niche business, a small business, we can. Visit podcastsolutions.us. Schedule an appointment with me, Kenn, and let me explain how we can win with podcasting in 2019. podcastsolutions.us. All right, that's it for this week. I want to thank you for listening, downloading, and supporting Motorcycle Talk. This is your friend and your brother, Kenn Blanchard, and thank you so much for being a part of the show. If there's something that you'd like to hear, feel free to send me an email, ken.blanchard@gmail.com. If you're getting something cool for Christmas, let me know. May the road rise up to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face. The rains fall soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hand.